The Xerixian battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in a perfect geometric formation, their obsidian ships arranged in the time-honored triangle of dominance that had heralded the conquest of 1,000 worlds. High Commander Vexthor allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction as he observed the primitive solar system before him. Another routine conquest for the glory of the Empire. That feeling lasted exactly 12 seconds. "Sir," his sensor officer's voice cracked with confusion. "I'm detecting music." Through the command deck speakers came the unmistakable sound of electric guitar, followed by Freddie Mercury's voice, belting out, "Don't stop me now." The Xerixian crew stared at their displays in bewilderment as Earth's defense fleet came into view. Leading the human formation was the UES Pandemonium, its hull gleaming with what appeared to be chrome plating. Strips of LED lighting pulsed along its length in time with the music, and its plasma cannons had been modified to release streams of colorful ionized particles that trailed behind it like cosmic streamers. "This has to be a malfunction," Vexthor muttered, just as Admiral Jessica "Jazz Hands" Thompson's face appeared on their main screen. She was wearing a regulation Earth Fleet uniform that someone had apparently bedazzled with rhinestones. "Xerixian vessels." Her voice carried the appropriate diplomatic gravity, somewhat undermined by the fact that her command chair was spinning slowly. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to Sol System. We've prepared a small demonstration of our capabilities." Before Vexthor could respond with the standard threats, the Earth fleet began to move. Their ships, which intelligence had dismissed as primitive, split into 3 groups in a maneuver that somehow matched perfectly with the song's rhythm. The smaller vessels spiraled around the capital ships, leaving trails of iridescent plasma that formed complex geometric patterns in space. "Are they dancing?" Vexthor's tactical officer whispered in horror. They were. The entire Earth fleet was performing what would later be described in official Xerixian reports as synchronized space swimming, their movements so precise that the Empire's targeting computers repeatedly crashed trying to predict their next positions. "Our analysts said they barely had FTL capability," Vexthor said weakly, watching as the UES Pandemonium executed a perfect barrel roll while firing its main guns in a rhythm that, impossibly, produced the baseline of the song. "Oh, that old thing." Admiral Thompson's smile widened. "We had to jazz it up a bit. Would you believe someone tried to build a straight-line drive? Boring. So we added some curves, some style, and now our ships can moonwalk through hyperspace. Want to see?" The Xerixian tactical officer's eyes widened. "Sir, I'm detecting energy readings off the scale. But I can't. The patterns make no sense. They're modulating their shield harmonics to match the music." Indeed, the defensive barriers around the Earth ships were pulsing with chromatic waves, each hit from the demonstration weapons producing a different musical note. It was beautiful, ridiculous, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. "Impossible," Vexthor breathed. "Shield synchronization at that level would require a really good beat," Thompson suggested, as her fleet completed their formation by spelling out "hello" in ships. "Also really helps that we installed subwoofers on the hull. Changes the whole feel of space battle, you know." The Xerixian commander stared at his readouts in disbelief. Every seemingly frivolous addition to the human ships served at least 3 practical purposes. The LED strips were part of a visual communication system that worked even through heavy ECM. The chrome plating contained nano-reactive materials that improved their structural integrity. Even the music itself was being used to coordinate their movements with a precision that the Empire's finest formations couldn't match. As Queen's Anthem reached its crescendo, Admiral Thompson's ship spun one final time, releasing a cloud of microsatellites that arranged themselves into a giant glittering smiley face. "So," she said, somehow having acquired sunglasses during the maneuver, "shall we discuss terms? I've got some great ideas for your ships. Have you ever heard of Underglow?" Vexthor, High Commander of the Xerixian Empire's 7th Conquest Fleet, felt a headache coming on. This was definitely not going to be a routine conquest. The Xerixian High Command's emergency conference was interrupted by what appeared to be a meteor shower, except meteors didn't typically form conga lines. What in the seven hells are they doing now? Vex Thor demanded, watching Earth's orbital defense grid reconfigure itself. Each satellite was trailing prismatic energy and moving in patterns that made his tactical training scream in protest. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Ixel, consulted 3 different scanning devices before answering. They call it the Disco Defense Grid, sir, and it appears to be dancing. On the main display, thousands of satellites were indeed undulating through space in perfect synchronization. Some spun like tops, others bounced back and forth, all while maintaining their defensive coverage of Earth. The effect was hypnotic, like watching a cosmic ballet choreographed by a mad genius. This is clearly a primitive attempt at intimidation, Vex Thor declared, just as Admiral Thompson's face appeared on their screen again. She was wearing the same rhinestone-covered uniform, but now with the addition of what appeared to be light-up epaulettes. "Hey there. Noticed you were charging up your main guns," she said cheerfully. "Quick question. Do you guys like Bruno Mars?" Before Vex Thor could process this non-sequitur, Uptown Funk began blasting across all frequencies. The Disco Defense Grid's movements shifted to match the new beat, and suddenly the entire network lit up like a supernova. "Weapons locked," Ixel shouted. They're using the dance movements to generate overlapping fields of quantum uncertainty. Our targeting systems can't get a solution." Thompson's grin widened. "See, someone in R&D figured out that if you sync shield harmonics to specific frequencies, you can create these awesome ripple effects. The light show is just a bonus. Watch this." The UES Pandemonium suddenly executed a maneuver that defied several laws of physics. It spun on its axis while sliding sideways, its wake creating a spiral pattern that somehow interfered with the Xerixian fleet's sensors. The rest of Earth's ships followed suit, each adding their own flourishes to the movement. "Did your flagship just moonwalk?" Vex Thor asked weakly. "You better believe it. We call this one the electric slide evasion pattern. Social media's gonna love it." Thompson was actually dancing in her command chair now. The TikTok generation practically designed our entire tactical manual. Turns out those dance moves make great unpredictable patrol patterns. The Xerixian tactical AI chose that moment to have what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. It had detected 47 different possible attack vectors, 12 potential defensive formations, and one dance move it particularly wanted to try. "Sir," Ixel reported, horror creeping into his voice, "the humans are streaming this encounter live across their information networks. We're trending." Indeed, Earth's communication channels were buzzing with excitement. Hashtags like #SpaceRave and #XerixiansGotServed were spreading across their planet. Several of the defensive satellites had begun projecting enormous holographic numbers, apparently tracking their likes. "This is impossible," Vex Thor muttered. "No species would design their planetary defenses around entertainment." "Oh, that's where you're wrong," Thompson corrected him. "See, we figured if we have to build these anyway, might as well make them fun. Did you know that the strobe effect from our point defense lasers perfectly matches the chorus? Watch." The entire defense grid pulsed in perfect harmony, each flash secretly concealing the deployment of another layer of defensive measures. The Xerixian sensors registered thousands of small objects being launched, all moving in patterns that looked like elaborate dance choreography, but were actually forming an impenetrable defensive screen. "And here's the best part," Thompson added, as her fleet arranged itself into what appeared to be a giant spaceborne dance floor. "Everything you're seeing, it's already gone viral in the Pleiades sector. Your youth movements are gonna love this." Vex Thor watched in mounting despair as several of his younger crew members began unconsciously bobbing their heads to the beat. One of them was even recording the display on a personal device. The conquest of Earth, he realized was going to require a completely new tactical manual, preferably one with a section on rhythm. The Xerixian Empire's most elite infiltration unit, the Shadow Whisperers, had never failed a mission in 3 centuries of operation. As they stood in the lobby of Earth's Advanced Research Division, wearing extremely uncomfortable, "Hello, my name is" badges, they were beginning to understand why their intelligence gathering had gone so terribly wrong. "Welcome to Wacky Wednesday," announced the receptionist, who was wearing a lab coat covered in LED strips that spelled out "Science" in Morse code. "The anti-grav demonstration is in Lab 3, right after Dr. Rodriguez finishes his interpretive dance about quantum entanglement." Commander Cacall, master of 1,000 infiltrations, adjusted his Bob from accounting name tag and tried to maintain his cover. "Yes, we are here for the science things." "Great," the receptionist beamed. "Don't forget to follow our TikTok channel. Last week's video on nuclear fusion set to single ladies got like 1 million views." The infiltration team made their way through the facility, their sophisticated scanning equipment continuously reporting readings that couldn't possibly be correct. In one lab, a physicist was explaining string theory through an elaborate series of cat memes projected on the wall. The terrifying part was that her explanation made perfect sense. They passed a testing chamber where engineers were conducting stress tests on new hull materials by having what appeared to be a breakdance competition on them. Each move was precisely calibrated to test different structural tolerances, all while someone played "Break My Stride" on quantum-tuned speakers. "This can't be real," whispered Agent Sorrell, the team's senior analyst. "They're making breakthrough discoveries in theoretical physics while absolutely vibing," confirmed a passing scientist who was wearing a helmet that displayed his brain activity as a light show. "Check this out. We found a way to map 11-dimensional space using interpretive jazz. Want to see?" Before the infiltrators could decline, they were ushered into a large circular chamber. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, Earth's leading quantum physicist, was in the center of the room performing what looked like a combination of ballet and martial arts. Her movements were being tracked by dozens of sensors, each one mapping her gestures to complex mathematical formulae. "As you can see," she explained, pirouetting through a representation of quantum probability fields, "if we model quantum tunneling as a dance, the particles show us their natural rhythm." She moonwalked through a holographic representation of space-time. "We're calling it the quantum shuffle." Cacall watched in horror as his team's most sophisticated data-gathering devices began recording everything. The dancing physicist was somehow describing revolutionary scientific concepts through movement alone. And worse, it was working. Junior researchers around the room were taking notes, occasionally joining in with their own movements to better understand complex principles. In another corner, a group of engineers was testing a new propulsion system by having what they called a sick beat battle with the engine's resonance frequencies. Every time they found the right rhythm, the engine's efficiency increased. But where are your formal research protocols?" Kittel finally burst out, his cover momentarily forgotten. "Your rigorous documentation. Oh, we have those," Dr. Rodriguez said, now doing the robot through a demonstration of particle spin states. "But we found out that if you make learning fun, people retain it better. Plus," she added with a wink, "it drives our enemies absolutely crazy trying to figure out if we're brilliant or insane." "The answer is yes," called out an engineer who was coding a new AI system through a game of Dance Dance Revolution. The final straw came when they reached the quantum computing lab, where researchers had somehow merged a supercomputer with a karaoke machine. They claimed it helped process complex calculations by matching them to song rhythms. The horrifying part was that it was processing data faster than any computer in the Xerixian Empire. Kittel's team fled the facility an hour later, their reports filled with detailed technical data that no one would ever believe. As they departed, Dr. Rodriguez's voice echoed down the corridor. "Don't forget to like and subscribe." Next week, we're explaining dark matter through interpretive sock puppet theater. In orbit, Admiral Thompson received their surveillance footage and smiled. "Send this to their cultural ministry," she ordered. "Tag it as Earth's Got Talent, Science Edition." High Commander Vexthor stood before the gathered Xerixian War Council, trying to maintain his dignity while explaining why Earth's defense fleet was now attempting to remix their battle formations. "They've done what HFY to Jupiter." The Grand Admiral's voice cracked with disbelief. They've turned the Great Red Spot into what they call the mood ring," Vexthor reported, bringing up the latest surveillance footage. Jupiter's famous storm now shifted through a rainbow of colors, each hue pulsing in patterns that made the tactical computers crash. They claimed they were bored and thought it would look cool. The massive display showed Jupiter's transformed storm, now a swirling vortex of chromatic energy that somehow managed to form different emoji expressions visible from space. Currently, it was displaying what humans called the smirking face. "But that's impossible," the Grand Admiral spluttered. "The energy requirements alone would." He was interrupted by Admiral Thompson's unauthorized broadcast breaking through their security protocols. She appeared to be sitting in a command chair made entirely of disco balls. "Oh hey, you're talking about our Jupiter project. Like the new look? We call it Gas Giant Glow Up. Watch this." She pressed a button on her rhinestone-encrusted console. The Great Red Spot shifted colors again, this time in sync with "Another One Bites the Dust." More alarmingly, the storm's rotation began generating what their sensors identified as a hyperspace vortex. Did they just weaponize an entire planet's weather system because they thought it would look aesthetic? One of the junior officers whispered in horror. The physics calculations required to maintain stable color-shifting patterns in a storm system of that magnitude. The Xerixian chief scientist's voice trailed off as he watched Jupiter perform what could only be described as a planetary-like show. "Oh, that was just math," Thompson said with a wave of her hand. "The hard part was picking the right color palette. Marketing wanted something more pastel, but we went with classic neon. Really makes the hyperspace cannon pop, don't you think?" Hyperspace cannon. Vexthor felt a headache coming on. "Well, yeah. We figured if we're going to manipulate a massive storm system, might as well use it for something practical. The vortex compression ratios are amazing when you sync them to the right baseline. Want to see?" Before anyone could object, the Great Red Spot began spinning faster, its colors intensifying. The storm system, now pulsing in perfect rhythm, suddenly released a beam of energy that cut through space in a spiral pattern of completely unnecessary but admittedly gorgeous chromatic waves. That's not how hyperspace weapons are supposed to work," the chief scientist protested weakly. "I know, right?" Thompson beamed. "Regular hyperspace cannons are so boring. Just pew-pew, straight lines, no style. We added some pizzazz. The spiral pattern actually improves accuracy by 40%. Something about quantum harmonics and looking totally radical, dude." The Xerixian War Council watched in mounting despair as Earth's scientists, visible in the background of Thompson's transmission, celebrated their success with an impromptu dance party. One of them was using the hyperspace cannon's control panel as a DJ booth. "We've got more upgrades planned," Thompson continued enthusiastically. "We're thinking about adding a feature where it plays 'Thus Spoke Zarathustra' every time we fire it. You know, really lean into the whole space opera vibe." "But why?" Vexthor finally exploded. "Why add all these unnecessary flourishes to your weapons?" Thompson's grin widened. "First, because it's awesome. Second, because every time we do something ridiculous, your targeting computers spend so much time trying to figure out if it's a weapon or a party that we could probably win a war through sheer confusion. And third," she paused for dramatic effect as Jupiter's storm shifted to form a winking face, "because we can." As if to emphasize her point, the Earth fleet chose that moment to demonstrate their new formation skating maneuver, complete with what appeared to be solar wind contrails forming the words "deal with it" in space. The Grand Admiral slowly sank into his chair. "Get me the cultural ministry," he muttered. "We need to understand how they turned weaponized chaos into an art form." The Xerixian Empire's top psychological warfare experts sat in stunned silence, watching their carefully crafted campaign of intimidation crash and burn in spectacular fashion. On their main screen, Admiral Thompson's fleet had responded to their threat display by painting every ship with what she called dad jokes. "I don't understand," muttered Dr. Kvix, head of psychological operations. "Our fear-inducing transmissions should be causing panic and demoralization. Instead, he squinted at his report, rating our threats on a scale of 1 to cringe and suggesting better dialogue. The UE's pandemonium drifted past their command ship, its hull now decorated with glowing text that read, "Why did the Scarab Beetle go to space? Because it wanted to see the Milky Way." Each letter sparkled with what sensors indicated were actually highly sophisticated targeting arrays. "Sir," a junior analyst called out, "they're responding to our intimidation broadcasts with something called memes." The tactical display filled with Earth's counter-offensive. Every threatening message was being met with an ancient Earth image macro, each one more bewildering than the last. Their attempt at showcasing planetary devastation was answered with galaxy brain variations. Their death threats were countered with "This is fine dog" edits featuring Xerixian ships. "They're not taking us seriously," Dr. Kvix exploded, just as Admiral Thompson's latest transmission came through. She was wearing what appeared to be a Hawaiian shirt over her uniform and holding a coffee mug labeled "World's Best Admiral, No Cap Farifar." "Hey guys, loving the whole Harbinger of Doom vibe you're going for, but the delivery needs work. Have you considered adding more pizzas? Maybe some jazz hands?" The psychological warfare team watched in horror as Earth's Marine Corps chose that moment to demonstrate their new combat deployment strategy. Hundreds of drop pods launched from their ships, each one trailing sparklers as the Marines inside performed synchronized TikTok dances during atmospheric entry. "Our species has caused the collapse of empires," one of the Xerixian commanders shouted in frustration. "Weird flex, but okay," Thompson responded, somehow using vocal patterns from Earth's ancient internet age. "But have you considered that your empire could use more yeet?" "What is yeet?" Dr. Kvix demanded, just before watching Earth's fleet demonstrate the concept by throwing a salvo of missiles in an unnecessarily dramatic arc that spelled out "LOL" in explosion patterns. The final straw came when Earth unveiled their new combat eye, which they had apparently trained using nothing but comedy routines and viral videos. It responded to Xerixian battle algorithms with calculated randomness that it insisted on narrating in something called "you speak." "This is psychological warfare," Dr. Kvix protested as his team's most devastating fear projections were met with "no you" responses. "You're supposed to be intimidated." "Oh, we're doing psychological warfare." Thompson perked up. "Hold my energy drink." What followed was a masterclass in weaponized cringe. Earth's ships began broadcasting every embarrassing moment from humanity's internet history, but weaponized. Their electronic warfare suite was modified to force Xerixian computers to autoplay, "Never Gonna Give You Up." Combat transmissions were delivered entirely in early 21st century text speak. "Make it stop," whimpered a veteran psychological warrior as Earth's fleet arranged itself into a giant emoticon. They're using second-hand embarrassment as a tactical weapon. The coup de grace came when Thompson introduced what she called Operation Vibe-Check. Every threatening message from the Xerixian fleet was now being analyzed by an AI that responded exclusively in outdated slang, rating each threat's drip and suggesting ways to make them more based. "Our entire psychological warfare division needs therapy," Dr. Kvix reported to High Commander Vexthor. "They keep mumbling about something called Ratiod, and can't stop saying oof. Mission accomplished, Thompson declared cheerfully. Now, who's ready for our TED talk on incorporating interpretive dance into space combat? We're calling it Thank You for Coming to My TED Talk, Space Edition. In the depths of space, the mighty Xerixian psychological warfare fleet retreated, their crews haunted by the sound of Thompson's parting words. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more content. Admiral Xanthor of the Xerixian First Strike Fleet had finally snapped. After watching Earth's increasingly ridiculous displays of power, he'd decided to end this farce with overwhelming force. No more games, no more patience, just pure military might. Full attack formation, he roared. Show these dancing monkeys what real warfare looks like. That's when Earth activated what they called their emergency party protocol. Oh honey, Admiral Thompson's voice came through, now wearing what appeared to be a light-up tactical vest, with "Here to party and fight" written in LEDs. You really want to do this, because we've been saving our best moves for a special occasion. The solar system erupted into chaos. Every asteroid in the belt suddenly lit up with hidden energy signatures, revealing themselves to be disguised defense platforms. They began moving in what the humans called a cosmic conga line, forming an impenetrable defensive grid that pulsed in time with staying alive. Battle stations. Xanthor ordered, just as his tactical officers screamed. Sir, they're dabbing with their ships. Indeed, the Earth fleet was performing impossible maneuvers that somehow incorporated ancient human meme culture into advanced combat tactics. The UES Pandemonium led the charge, its hull now transformed into what Thompson called peak aesthetic, a combination of chrome, neon, and what appeared to be actual glitter, but was actually a cloud of microscopic combat drones. Launch the planet killer, Xanthor commanded. About that, Thompson interrupted, somehow hacking their comms with a TikTok transition effect. We thought you might try something like that, so we prepared a little surprise. Hit it, DJ. The asteroid belt's defense platforms synchronized their shields, creating what could only be described as a solar system-sized disco ball effect. But instead of being merely decorative, each reflected beam was a precisely calculated weapons platform. This is what happens when you let Gen Z design your defense grid, Thompson explained proudly. They insisted it had to look extra AF, while also being able to redirect energy weapons. The light show is just a bonus. Xanthor watched in horror as his fleet's most powerful weapon was caught in the crossfire of 1,000 reflected beams, each one arriving with its own custom sound effect. His mighty armada was being dismantled by what looked like a galactic rave. Impossible, he spluttered. Our tactical simulations can't account for style points. Thompson finished. Computer, activate protocol. Just vibing. The Earth fleet began executing what they called their signature move. Ships spun and weaved in patterns that should have left them vulnerable, but somehow created perfect firing solutions. Marines deployed between vessels using grappling hooks that left rainbow trails in space. The whole formation moved like a choreographed dance number, each seemingly random flourish revealing itself as part of a devastatingly effective battle strategy. Are they playing Space Jam during combat maneuvers? Xanthor's second-in-command asked weakly. They were, and it was working. Every beat drop coincided with another perfectly timed attack. The Earth forces had somehow weaponized their own absurdity, turning their flair for the dramatic into a combat advantage that no conventional military doctrine could counter. The killing blow came when Thompson's fleet executed what she called a pro-gamer move. The entire defense grid synchronized its movements to "Never Gonna Give You Up," creating a massive energy wave that looked exactly like a galactic scale rickroll. Did they just rickroll us with a weapon of mass destruction? Someone whispered on the bridge. That's it. Xanthor screamed. I'm done. No more. How do you fight an enemy that turns everything into a party? That's the neat part, Thompson replied. her ship now trailing sparklers, as it executed a perfect barrel roll around his command vessel. "You don't. You join in. By the way, your bridge could really use some mood lighting." As his mighty fleet retreated in disarray, Xanthor could have sworn he heard Thompson shouting, "Don't forget to post this on Spacegram." The lighting was perfect. The Battle of Sol would go down in Xerixian history as the day they learned that sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one who takes war seriously, it's the one who makes it look fabulous. The Xerixian Cultural Ministry was facing an unprecedented crisis. Footage of Earth's flamboyant defense of their solar system had leaked across the Empire's information networks, and the results were problematic. "They're calling it space talk," Minister Valir reported grimly to the Imperial Council. "Our youth are adding unnecessary lighting to their vehicles." Someone bedazzled the Imperial War Memorial. "Yesterday, I caught my own daughter trying to organize a flash mob in the sacred halls of Conquest." The emergency meeting was interrupted by a holographic projection of several young Xerixian officers performing what they called a synchronized ship shuffle with their patrol vessels. The ship's movements were perfectly coordinated to something called K-pop. "This is Admiral Thompson's fault," one of the counselors growled. "Her influence is spreading like a virus through our culture." Actually, Thompson's voice cut in as she somehow hacked yet another secure channel. "We'd prefer to call it going viral. Speaking of which, have you seen what the kids did to your flagship? Because it's literally lit." The council rushed to the windows just in time to see the pride of the Xerixian fleet drift past, now outfitted with what appeared to be underglow lighting and a sound system powerful enough to make solar winds dance. The Engineering Corps claims the modifications improve engine efficiency by 15%, Valir admitted reluctantly. "They're calling it function with fashion, and insist that looking based is now a tactical requirement." Meanwhile, across the Empire, the revolution of style was gaining momentum. Young officers were adding personal flair to their uniforms, claiming that individuality improved combat performance. The Academy's drilling grounds had been converted into what they called a practice stage, where battle formations were being choreographed to Earth music. "Our latest intelligence is concerning," Valir continued, pulling up a series of reports. 17 battle fleets have replaced their traditional war chants with something called a playlist. The 7th Legion is demanding dance classes as part of combat training, and someone taught the Imperial AI about SAS. The AI chose that moment to respond to a command with "Slay Queen" in perfect Earth vernacular. But the most alarming development, Valir said, visibly pained, is what's happening to our military technology. The display showed modifications spreading across the Empire, ships painted in iridescent colors that somehow improved their stealth capabilities, weapon systems that were more effective when they looked aesthetic, and battle strategies that incorporated dance theory into their calculations. "Our youngest engineers are calling it the Vide Revolution," Valir explained. "They claimed that our technology was too basic and needed to get on Earth's level. Some of them have started a movement called Xerixians with Attitude." Admiral Thompson's transmission interrupted again, this time featuring her entire bridge crew doing a synchronized chair spin. "I hear you're having some cultural developments. Love that for you. By the way, some of your cadets sent us the sweetest collab request. We're thinking of calling it Space Force, the musical." Before the council could respond, their emergency broadcast system was hijacked by what appeared to be a TikTok compilation of Xerixian ships performing increasingly elaborate maneuvers, each one tagged with "felt cute." Might delete later hashtag Space Force Vibes, hashtag Xerixian Swag, hashtag no filter. The worst part, Valir concluded, is that it's working. Ships with these modifications are outperforming our standard models. The crews call it main character energy. Thompson's grin widened. "You know what they say, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em." By the way, we're hosting an intergalactic talent show next week. Your embassy already signed up for the group performance category. Something about a K-pop inspired interpretation of your imperial anthem. As if on cue, a group of young Xerixian diplomats danced past the council chamber, practicing their routine while discussing how to add more glow-up potential to traditional ceremonial armor. Minister Vettler looked down at his own uniform, then back at the reports of increasing efficiency and morale across the modified fleets. Perhaps, he said slowly, it's time for the Empire to consider a more vibrant approach to galactic dominance. In her office on Earth, Admiral Thompson watched the cultural transformation unfold with satisfaction. Phase 1 of operation. Space glow-up complete, she noted in her log. Time to introduce them to karaoke. The signing of the Earth-Xerixian Treaty was unlike any diplomatic event in galactic history. The Grand Hall of the Xerixian Imperial Palace, traditionally a place of austere ceremony, had been transformed into what Admiral Thompson insisted on calling the hottest club in the galaxy. You know, Thompson remarked to High Commander Vexthor, who was trying very hard not to tap his foot to the beat, when I first suggested hosting the peace talks at a rave. I thought your diplomats would have a fit. They did, Vexthor admitted, adjusting his formal robes, which someone had outlined with subtle fiber optic threading. But then our efficiency experts discovered that negotiations conducted while dancing were 30% more successful. Something about good vibes improving diplomatic relations. The diplomatic corps of both species mingled on the dance floor, their formal attire modified with what Earth's fashion consultants called just a touch of pizzazz. Young Xerixian officers demonstrated their newly developed zero-G breakdancing techniques, while Earth's Marines taught their counterparts something called the electric slide. Creator preserve us, muttered an elderly Xerixian admiral, watching as the Imperial Guard performed a perfectly synchronized flash mob. What have we become? Cooler, Thompson replied simply, as she prepared to sign the treaty with a pen that played "Another One Bites the Dust" when clicked. Much, much cooler. The actual signing ceremony was broadcast across both civilizations. The treaty itself was displayed on a holographic screen that pulsed in time with the music, its legal text somehow formatted to create a light show when scrolled. Each signature triggered a cascade of harmless but spectacular quantum fireworks. For the record, Vexthor said as he picked up his own musical pen, our traditional ceremonies didn't include background music or dance breaks. And now they do. Thompson beamed. Just wait until you see what we've planned for the after-party. Ever heard of a conga line? The most surprising moment came when the Xerixian ambassador, inspired by weeks of cultural exchange and possibly several glasses of Earth champagne, attempted to dab after signing the document. The move, while technically imperfect, received enthusiastic applause from both delegations. Did you ever think, Thompson asked, watching as a group of Xerixian scientists demonstrated their new rhythmic quantum tunneling technique to fascinated Earth physicists, that we'd end up here when your fleet first arrived? You mean, did I think our attempted conquest would end with our entire civilization learning to dance? Vexthor shook his head. If anyone had suggested it, I'd have had them evaluated for mental stability. And now I'm seriously considering adding LED strips to my command chair. The party reached its peak when the combined fleet of both species performed what they called a choreographed space ballet in orbit. Ships from both civilizations, now modified with various unnecessary but surprisingly effective aesthetic enhancements, moved in perfect harmony to create patterns visible from the planet's surface. You know what the strangest part is? Vexthor mused, watching as a formerly straight-laced Xerixian battle group performed a perfect spiral maneuver while trailing rainbow plasma. We're actually better at everything now. Our ships are more efficient, our crews are happier, and our tactical advantage comes from being completely unpredictable. That's the secret, Thompson winked. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to be the most serious or the most powerful. It's to be the most yourself, just with better lighting. As the celebration continued, Thompson's final report to Earth Command was brief. Mission accomplished. Turned potential extinction-level conflict into biggest party in human history. Also introduced concept of space raves to Galactic community, requesting additional budget for glitter bombs and sound systems. P.S. You should see what they did with their nebula outposts. Turns out you can actually make a pulsar drop sick beats. In the years that followed, historians would mark this as the moment when the galaxy's oldest empire learned to, in their own words, cut loose and get down. The Xerixian military academies added advanced swagger to their curriculum, and their ships became known for having the best parties in known space. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, Admiral Jessica Thompson was already planning the next intergalactic talent show, complete with what she promised would be the most extra halftime show in the history of the universe. After all, as Earth had proven, sometimes the best way to win a war was to turn it into something worth dancing about.